Last episode, I introduced the framework. I told some personal stories as far as like why I created this framework. I introduced the yellow lights and the red lights that are a part of this framework, which are societal threats that can get in the way of young people's ability to pursue and continue on their journey to greatness. Now, on this episode, I'm going to get into why I believe this framework works. We're going to talk about the things that make up this framework, the research and the insights that make up this framework as a whole. It's going to be an exciting conversation. And so with that being said, let's get to the introduction. I am Raymond Long. I am the host of the Green Light You Be Great podcast. And this podcast is helping adults build environments where young people are in supportive environments where they can thrive. And I'm glad that you tuned in today. Let's hop right into our discussion. And so let's discuss why it works. Listen, peer-reviewed research, it consistently shows that students cannot fully engage in social emotional learning until they experience emotional safety, connection, and supportive relationships with adults. You see, emotional support, it's the foundation of which social emotional learning, those skills are learned, practiced, and internalized. In other words, it's a predictable, emotionally supportive environment. It's a prerequisite for SEL, not the other way around. It shouldn't be an afterthought. This framework, it works, and I believe in it because it's research informed. I mean, it's grounded in the lived experiences of myself and young people and adults. It's centered on strengthening adult practices while remaining deeply shaped by the lived experience of young people and fully customizable to the cultural rims and values of every school or program. I like to say, instead of adding another curriculum, it equips adults with practical tools to interpret emotional cues, respond with consistency, and build predictable emotional climates that support healthy youth development. Now, I also believe that it strengthens the social emotional support by shifting organizations from a deficit-based view of social emotional support to an asset-based view that's creating ecosystems for emotional support, creating an ecosystem for social emotional support that's grounded in the great possibilities of today's generation. That's based on the great ability of today's teachers and educators and youth workers to provide top quality, high level social emotional support. It's built on original insights and lived experiences. It's all about exploring how young people define emotional support and really understanding how subtle emotional abandonment occurs even in caring environments where intentions are good, and how these early experiences, they shape long-term emotional development in both youth and adults. It works because it gives staff a shared language and deeper insight into themselves and also to the students they serve. The Green Light You Be Great, at its core, it's a relationship building framework. And I'm really proud of the framework because it was built with school environments and after-school program environments in mind. This integrates naturally into existing school-wide routines and systems. It puts social emotional support where it needs to be. That's at arrivals, transitions, lunch, dismissal. That's after-school activities and family engagement, while strengthening universal support practices and creating organic bridges to additional targeted supports for students who need a little more individualized attention. You know, this approach, it's packed with research and concepts and insights. It's reinforced by a broad evidence and informed foundation that draws from well-established concepts such as, and I'll talk about several of them here, adverse and positive childhood experiences. Most of us, it's fair to assume that you've heard of the adverse childhood experiences. Those are the yellow and red lights. that we discussed. That's parental imprisonment. That's substance abuse. That's acts of violence. Domestic abuse. The research shows that young people who are experiencing those, they'll struggle to pursue greatness in the current environments, and then it'll be even harder for them when they become adults. But positive childhood experiences, that research isn't used as much as I would like it, but it actually serves as it counters the adverse childhood experiences. And everything I mentioned, last episode about, the adversity that I went through in DHS, attempting to put me in the foster system. I talked about a domestic arson attempt that I participated in. I mentioned just several adverse childhood experiences that shaped me, right? And it created this sense of distrust in the world. And I can say this with complete certainty. I'm not doing this podcast. I don't have the opportunity to create a framework that's based on my lived experiences without the positive childhood experiences in my life. And so, yes, there were a lot of bad things and there were a lot of things that I had to struggle through, but I am proud to say that my mother, she was aware, she understood how her life impacted me, and she did everything in her to combat the reality with positive childhood experiences. And I believe that's why I live to tell the story. And so I'll just go over some examples of some positive childhood experiences that come to my mind. Having the ability to play sports, right? Being on sport teams, being in a loving church community where I could, look up to people who looked like me, who talked like me, who walked like me. Having the opportunity to travel with other family members who had the means, having the opportunity to have relationships with adults that I trusted. I mean, some of these relationships were key. It's what I held on to. It's the image I held on to as far as what I wanted to become. I'll never forget. I always like to tell this story. I had just got into a fight in middle school for someone saying something about my mother. And I hinted in the last episode that I could connect with a young man that I was mentoring because I know what it feels like to feel like you want to defend yourself and you want to defend your mom's honor. But my mother, she was aware of the impact of positive childhood experiences. And so one positive childhood experience I had was having an older established cousin who flew down from Georgia to have a conversation with me because my mother, she noticed that I was making the wrong turns and making the wrong decisions. And because I wanted to be like him, because I liked the car that he drove, because I liked the way that he was able to talk and articulate his ideas, I bought into when he said, "Hey man, you can't keep getting in trouble if you want to grow up and be like me." Now, that didn't solve the complete problem, but I stopped acting out because I didn't want to get in trouble. But what I did do was next, I actually withdrew. And so I was like hiding in plain sight in all of my environments. We have to do everything that we can, for the young people that we're facing to make sure that we're combating what they're going to face. Their adverse childhood experiences are out of our control. They're inevitable in a sense. But with this type of system, with us being aware of who's going through what, who's facing what, being able to identify young people who are not at risk, they're not at risk themselves, but there is some risk involved in their lives as far as things they're going to face. And so we need to be prepared to mitigate that risk. Then trauma-informed principles, right? Safety, trust, regulation, and responsiveness. Trauma-informed principles, it's what it's really about is it's being prepared for the worst case scenario. Often we can't overlook the sheer trauma that our young people are going to face in their lives. But the Green Entry Framework, it takes into account for that. It references and uses research and those evidence-based practices. But we don't lead with trauma. We don't want to be reactive when it comes to a young person's potential. We want to be proactive. And being proactive is, yes, being trauma informed, but then these other concepts that I've embedded to the framework, it really allows us to be proactive. And maybe if we're proactive enough, we can even empower young people to respond differently to trauma. maybe we can help young people handle with trauma better. And so the next concept is it's Carol Dweck's growth mindset. Her book, her research, talks about the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. I wonder if we have any idea how many young people, before they even arrive in a school setting, that they've defeated themselves mentally. As they go about doing things, they're operating in a fixed mindset. Your mother tells you that she wasn't good at math, so you don't believe that you have the opportunity to be good at math. And so sometimes you don't try because of that fixed mindset. And even if you do try, the first sign of adversity or the first time you receive pushback, you go right back to, I can't do this anyway. And that can happen across the board in every subject. It can happen with how they socialize. It can happen with how they connect with people. It can happen with how they express themselves. And so are we sending key messages to young people about their ability to grow, that who they can become and who they want to be, it isn't fixed? With work, with resources, with support, they need to understand that they can grow. Then there's learning differences and cognitive diversity. There are young people who obviously have different learning styles. They have different learning preferences. They have different learning interests. And then there's learning actual disabilities that are going undiagnosed. Later in the podcast, I'm going to have a unique conversation with a ear, nose, and throat surgeon who's actually made some interesting connections into young people and their ability to hear and the senses and how that impacts their learning environments. Stay tuned. That'll be a part of season 1. You need a way to make sure that you're aware of every possible different learning difference. You don't want anything hindering a young person. And we can't make young people adapt to their environments when they're trying to learn. Being able to adapt is a skill in itself. And then there's healthy thought patterns and positive self-talk. There's lots of conversation around negative self-talk and positive self-talk, and we do a great job in society of addressing this with adults. But I think it's important that we address this with young people as well. What are they telling themselves? The mind, it races. We don't really have control over our thoughts, right? Psychology has taught us that. And I think young people are advanced these days that they can understand some of these concepts, so they can stop caving in to the negative chatter that they're hearing every day. They don't have a way to combat that. They don't understand how. And so we have to incorporate that, which is why it's a part of the framework. And then there's wraparound services. We have to take care of the whole child. Before you can offer social emotional support, you have to make sure that a young person has what they need to come to school, and clothing, shelter, those basic needs. And social emotional support, it's right there with, I believe, basic needs. But before you can help a person, you have to feed them. You have to feed them in a sense, and you have to be able to understand what your organization can offer, and have a process, have a referral system, so that you can really offer those wraparound services for young people. And then I want to focus on the two generation model. Time and time again, I've sat down and had conversations with administrators, and administrators are and psychologists and psychiatrists. And whenever I'm having these roundtable discussions, everyone's placing a strong emphasis on education of parents. And that's what the two generation model was all about. Education, and also we'll take it a step further. And we need to educate parents on emotional support, inform parents on resources that are available. Then also we need to understand, what are their parents facing? What are their obstacles? Right? We can't give young people the top quality emotional support that this framework offers and then just forget about, the nurture aspect of who they become. Parents need up-to-date information. Parents need emotional support, and this framework, it 100% keeps them in mind. And then I really want to focus on, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, his behavioral change principles. The basis of what he talks about is safety, trust, belonging, right? They are prerequisites to behavior change. And from my experience growing up, from the conversations I've had with young people, conversations I've had with educators and administrators, it's behavior change is what we want first. Is what everybody looks for first. It's almost like if your behavior changes, then there's safety, trust, and there's loving support. That's backwards. And the green light framework, it is going to make sure that everyone in your school building, everyone who's going to come in contact with a young person within this, social emotional support ecosystem that we're going to build together, that it's imperative that we focus on the relationship first, making sure young people feel safe first, make sure that they understand what's in it for them. I wanted my mentee to change his behavior, but the reason I was able to get him to buy into changing his behavior is because I was able to paint a picture, right? If you haven't listened to episode 1, go back and listen to the story. But I was able to tell him, hey, young man, if you take a different route to solving your problem about what peers said about your mother, there's still something in it for you. It's not just about what I want for you and what I want you to do. It's about what you want for yourself. And I can't underestimate the power of youth engagement. I don't believe in doing things to young people. I believe in doing things with young people. I want to engage them in how this is implemented inside of your school. I want to have more conversations across the country with young people about what social emotional support looks like. I want to hear young people define greatness. I want this framework to help people all over the world understand this generation like never before. And then, of course, there's widely accepted research and SEO best practices. I'm not creating anything new here. It's all based on evidence-based practices. What I've done is I've packaged it in a way where it's going to inspire people to change their approach to social emotional support. And that happens through having someone who has lived a life without the social emotional support. And so there's special insight. Long Impact Group, it's a full service social impact firm. And so, yes, we have an understanding and a passion about social emotional learning and social emotional support, but we also can help with change management. We also can help with the operational side. We can help measure impact. We can help go after, funding to support, this type of initiative. And to do that, you need to use those widely accepted informed practices. And this is not another curriculum. This is a framework that compiles the best curriculums and turns them into actionable items and actionable insights. But then because we're full service, we can come alongside you, alongside adults, alongside young people, alongside leaders to implement the framework. I'm really excited about some of the early feedback that I've received. And we're just going to keep pushing. We're going to keep going. And always, if you have feedback, if you have questions, in the show notes, my contact information is there. I want to hear from you. So now let's talk about how this framework, how it operates. It operates through 3 core levers. Those levers are adult emotional support skills, environmental and cultural shaping, and organizational alignment. Conversations I've had with administrators, the first thing they say about social emotional support and the first thing I love about this framework is that it's going to help the adults. And adults should be a priority in this. We're asking them to do things differently. We're asking adults who may have not had the social emotional support themselves to now offer it. You cannot what you didn't see. You cannot give what you didn't get. And so a lot of times we need to rethink social emotional support and really rethink the training, and which is why we use this lever to provide tools and language, and that's going to help adults with the confidence to respond, consistently, to respond with empathy, and to respond with clarity. Then there's the environment and culture shaping. It's all about building emotional supportive ecosystems across classrooms, programs, hallways, activities, and leadership interactions. This is making social emotional support a lifestyle within your organization. It's keeping it top of mind in every decision, every policy that's created, every behavior document that's written, every warning that sits home, every parent-teacher conference, every performance improvement plan. It's going to be woven into the fabric of your organization. That's what makes it a green light. It's going to embed signals, embed a culture of go, pursue greatness, no matter what you're facing. We're here. We support you. We love you. The authentic you. I am looking forward to some of the early results of implementing this in a pilot school. And so then there's organizational alignment. You have to get everybody on board. You have to unify leaders, staff, and systems around this common approach to emotional support. You can't offer social emotional support if you don't have the data, if you don't have the information. So we collect information, we collect that data, turn it into information so that you can know when it's time to where to embed a growth mindset, where you can know, all right, the behavior change principles, what's the best way that we can use this? Okay, we're going to adopt a 2-generational approach. We know, adverse childhood experiences and positive childhood experiences, but now we know who we need to target with what. It's just a total organizational alignment so that everything flows from a standpoint of we want to be known for offering social emotional support. So then let's talk about implementation. This is implemented in 5 different phases, and depending on where your organization is kind of the phase that we can start. Some of these phases are interchangeable based on where you are. Now, that's why we do an assessment, and we offer the free conversation so you can know exactly where you are, so we can get you exactly where you need to be. Phase 1 is the assessment and ecosystem scan. It's the review of the current culture. It's emotional support gaps. It's understanding leadership alignment and organizational readiness. We're going to paint a clear picture of the emotional ecosystem and a roadmap for alignment. What are you doing? What are you not doing? What are you doing well? What is the best next step for you? Phase 2 is going to be that training and adult skill building. It's foundational emotional support skills. It's the shared language that we discussed. It's scenario practices and aligned adult responses. This is when adults are going to be equipped with those practical, repeatable tools that, strengthen emotional presence and consistency. It's where that change management is going to take place. It's where that buy-in, and you're going to see your youth workers and teachers, they're going to get excited about social emotional support because it's not going to happen to them either. It's going to happen with them. Then environmental and cultural design. This is, embedding those routines, creating the social emotional support rituals, paying attention to environmental cues, seeing how programs are aligned. This is when we're going to really integrate the voices of young people and really shape the climate. This is when you're getting to a place where your environment it's poised to begin reinforcing predictable emotional support across daily interactions and settings. And then there's there's coaching and application. Now this is the Long impact group. Yes, Long it goes with my name, but it's also the vision of we're going to stick with you. And we're not just offering a framework and then walking away. We want to coach. We want to mentor. We want to model, right? We want to shadow leaders to really get real-time feedback and help leaders develop real-time habits. In this phase, skills become habits, and then adults, they are more capable of confidently applying their framework in real situations. And then phase 5, which is the most important thing, I believe, to most youth serving organizations and most school districts, is that, you got to be able to prove that this works. You got to have return on investment. And so we have a process for, measurement and sustainability. There's progress indicators involved based on the metrics that you choose that are most valuable to your specific school building. We will create dashboards and have annual refresh cycles, strategic plans and sustainability plans that make sure that the work can continue long-term, far past any contractual relationship with Long Impact Group. And the outcome is that, emotional support, it becomes part of the organization's DNA. And we want to show that the Green Light to Be Great framework, it's measurable. and it leads to keyword sustainable change. So let's talk about how we bring this framework to life. This framework, we are uniquely positioned to implement the framework, and I've hinted at it earlier because we're a full service social impact firm. There's 4 different ways that we show up and embed ourselves in what your organization is doing around social emotional support. There's keynote speaking, professional development workshops, instruction materials, and then technical assistance and implementation support. Keynote speaking, right? This is not your average boring keynote speaking. This is high energy kickoffs that align leaders and staffs and partners on a shared vision. We're going to anchor the why, and we're going to try to touch and have conversations with anyone who shapes the youth experience. There are professional development workshops. These are modular, job-embedded learning experiences supported by practice labs and scenario rehearsals and coaching huddles that build adult skill, confidence, and alignment across all roles. These can be offered year-round. We like to offer them in phases, right? Beginning of the year, refresh in the middle of the year, and then, of course, we want to help prepare in the off-season adults to support young people. And so we're going to show up when teachers show up. We're going to show up when youth workers show up to start new school years. Then there's their instruction materials. These are, ready-to-use toolkits. Things like, check-in menus, regulation posters, right? To keep social emotional support top of people's mind. It's repair templates, helping adults repair relationships, right, when things have gone wayward. It's embedding social emotional learning mini lessons and family scripts and, train the trainer guides to help build the internal capacity of staff and family-facing roles. Most of them are digital. Some of them are printed out, but we want you to be able to easily distribute these. No hassle. And we lean on the digital side of things because we want to co-brand this experience with you. Right? This is the Green Light to Be the Green Light to Be Great framework, powered by, insert the name of your organization. That's our mindset and approach to it. And so listen, let's talk about next steps. I'm excited. Let's build your emotional support ecosystem. We're going to strengthen culture. We're going to align adult practice, and we're going to deepen youth connection. And so let's schedule an introductory strategy session to assess your current emotional support, identify your ecosystem. Let's talk about priority areas and quick wins. Let's explore delivery options that are aligned to your goals. And let's outline a preliminary roadmap that's tailored to your culture and capacity. No hassle. This session, it's free. It's collaborative, and it's focused on helping you determine whether the framework is a right fit for your organization. And I want to remind everyone listening on why you should do something like this with Long Impact Group. Organizations have chosen Long Impact Group because the Green Light to Be Great framework and everything we do is focused on adult practice. We're strengthening culture, not just providing a program. This framework, what's unique about it, it's practical, adaptable, and culturally responsive. It's designed to fit the unique identity and routines and culture of each school and program that decides to adopt this model. It bridges research and real-world application. This is grounded in research-informed concepts and lived experience. It's translating theory into practical, actionable tools. It enhances staff confidence and alignment. It reduces burnout, clarifies expectations, and it fosters a unified adult approach. But then last but not least, it's about improving youth outcomes, increasing connection, belonging, engagement, and emotional well-being. And Long Impact Group, we don't just solve problems, we strengthen your entire organization. And so I want to, thank everyone. Thank you for listening to this, podcast today. Thanks for, having this conversation with me. And I want to lift up and thank educators, youth workers, parents, whoever's working hard to give young people an environment where they can feel like they have the green light to be themselves, to show up and go after things, to feel, learn, and most importantly, grow. I want to thank you. I wish you well on your journey. And until next time, I am Raymond Long. I'm your host of the Green Light to Be Great podcast. See you in a couple of weeks.